Right, moving on to driver of the day and championship standings. Now, it was fairly obvious who was going to get driver of the day. It was either going to be Max Verstappen or Sergio Perez. Max for leading and winning his home Grand Prix, or Sergio Perez starting from the back of the grid and overtaking what felt like 20 to 30 cars to get where he was after a couple of pit stops. But Sergio Perez actually won driver of the day with the final vote. And I'm going to shy away from giving it to Sergio because he had a bad qualifying session. It might not have been his fault, that he was let out of the pits late, but obviously we've already spoken about how he should have got to the grid quicker or should have done his outlap quicker. And I know he did the most overtakes this race, which is absolutely fantastic, especially given the circuit. But he also put himself in that position and he had the best car on the grid. So I'm going to give it to Max Verstappen. And previously, I've also said that I don't want to give it to the top drivers because they have to do something absolutely worldly to deserve it, like top every qualifying session, top all the practice sessions, etc., etc. But what Max did today, and we've already talked about strategy, so I won't talk about it for too long, is he held off two cars which are probably just as fast as the Red Bull, if not a little bit slower. But there was two cars, Lewis and Bottas, who could not touch Max at all. Max had that whole race under control from the second he drove off his starting box. He did not hesitate. He was already a couple of seconds out in front by lap 4 or 5, and it's a quick circuit as well. So to pull that distance is absolutely incredible. At no point did I think he had anyone in DRS range. It was crazy the amount of pace that guy had. So he deserves it in my opinion. Alex, over to you. Who are you going to award your driver of the day to?
Well, I'd have to venture a little bit of pedantry on my part to say that it is driver of the day, not driver of the weekend. So you're well within your right to give it to Verstappen in that regard, without whether or not he's done really well in qualifying or whatever. Because I think on the day, like you say, he was the fastest guy on track by some margin. So that's a perfectly well reasoned driver of the day in my opinion. Perez obviously did feel like it was the kind of standard consensus vote because he's done loads of overtaking. It's like the Formula One game, isn't it? They always give driver of the day to just whoever's gained the most places. So that kind of feels like who people tend to go for. Honourable mention for Gasly, who was the fastest of the one-stoppers and had the pace to comfortably keep the Ferraris behind. So I thought that was a great drive from him. I'm actually going to go with Fernando Alonso for my driver of the day, who drove very, very intelligently. He had a brilliant start to make up a couple of places at the beginning. He handled his tyres with his one-stopper really well, nabbed Sainz at the end, and easily had the measure of his teammate, who at one point was complaining that Alonso was too slow. And Alonso was like, I was just looking after my tyres. And so he was, he actually had both.
And then took off.
Exactly, yeah, because he had the pace and the tyre management to drive very, very well indeed. Started P9, ended up P6. He was given it absolutely everything in that Alpine. And I think from everyone on track, he really impressed me today. So I'm going to go with Fernando Alonso.